In 2024, I'm attempting to run 366 marathons in 366 days. Many times I'd have to tell myself that I wouldn't do it to fall back to sleep during the night, because it would like wake me up and just complete overwhelm. I don't like to use the word running to save my life, but in many ways it's certainly given me so much, and being able to help others in the process by doing something that for the most part I love is really enriching. Action really is all that you need to concern yourself with. My name's James Cooper, 36 years old. I'm a personal trainer, and in the last 10 years I've got quite into endurance and more recently ultra endurance pursuits, namely running, but I've also dabbled in triathlon and other bits and pieces like that. And at the moment, I'm embarking on a pretty big challenge, looking to raise money for the Samaritans.
You say pretty big challenge. Not sure there are many challenges bigger, to be honest. Just explain exactly what you're doing over 366 days.
Yeah, good old leap year, eh?
Yeah, I know. I was going to say you picked the right one, didn't you?
I didn't even know. So yeah, in 2024, I'm attempting to run 366 marathons in 366 days. So I was dabbling with the idea of doing like John O'Groats to Land's End or something along those lines. But a couple of years ago, a guy called Gary McKee, I think he's in Cumbria.
Yeah.
He did, you might have even had him on, I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but so he did the 365 marathons in 365 days. And it kind of intrigued me. It was just that little seed that was planted. But then I kind of forgot about it and just went on with everything. During the build for what I thought was going to be John O'Groats to Land's End, I asked my now fiance whether she'd rather I do like a lifestyle challenge or one where I'd be taken away for, say, I don't know, 14 days or whatever. She didn't know the type of lifestyle challenge I was starting to think about. But she said lifestyle challenge. So I was like, okay, well, that's the green light on doing something daily that I can still, work, personal train, still be the boyfriend that I need to be, and live kind of alongside the challenge. It was probably October of this year, of last year, because I get a bit confused with where we are.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was about October last year when I was on holiday. I read a book by a chap called Ryan Holiday, and it was Courage is Calling, the book. And it's just laced with examples of, like, in the past of human history, when people have had sort of almost a calling, and, some of the people stepped up and gave it a go, others didn't and were left with kind of regrets. And that book just kind of signified to me that I had to at least give this a try, because it kept playing on my mind. It kept gnawing at me to think, well, am I capable of this? So that was then. But to say from October to January the 1st was like smooth sailing and like, knowing that I can do this would be a lie. I mean, many times I'd have to tell myself that I wouldn't do it to fall back to sleep during the night, because it would like wake me up and just complete overwhelm.
Yeah, because it's one of those challenges that obviously is gonna be so strange throughout the challenge, isn't it? Because you're gonna build some cardiovascular fitness, but you have to have yourself in a position to go into the challenge to start with. So what was that kind of October through December like in terms of trying to get yourself ready?
Yeah, so my training started in the July, so July the 1st. I was doing like blocks of 14 days, because at that time I had the whole John O'Groats idea, which I planned to do over 14 days. So I was going to build consecutive running 14 days in a row, and then have a deload week of kind of half the frequency and half the distance on the runs. So I kind of gradually built. I think my first block was, say, 10 miles a day for 14 days, followed by 3 lots of 5 miles during the deload. And it just grew, maybe 10 to 20% increase in distance per block. So that kind of gave me, well, I'll pull it back, but I was running faster than I knew I would be on this challenge, but kind of stupidly, I thought that would be beneficial. But what I soon realized moving into the challenge was that when you're prodding along, when you're having walking break, you're using very different muscle groups. So anyone that's planning on something kind of like this, I would say do a lot more running at the pace that you're planning on doing the challenge at. So that was a big learning curve in the first month. But I probably peaked out at around 22 miles every day for 14 days. And that kind of gave me the belief that my body, that's as much as I really wanted to do, because you can never fully prepare, as you say. So then it was more about the mental side of things, like almost trying to accept just the vast unknown that might exist, and trying to make peace with that, and trying to just believe that you'll learn as you go and you will build fitness. The first month for me was very much kind of a continuation of the training. Like I would be really structured, would say run 5 miles, have a mile walk, to try and continue that sort of process of adaptation. And here we are.
It's such an interesting challenge, because if you just take a marathon on its own, you know, people talking about chunking down the marathon, take it as 4 10Ks or take it as 8 park runs. But when you've got a challenge like this, you're thinking, well, I can't just do that because I've got to do it every single day. Like how do you break it down in your head? Is it day by day? Is it week by week? Is it month by month?
Yeah, it's a good question. I've in recent times got into backyard ultras.
Okay, yeah.
And I mean, it's a running podcast, but if not familiar, it's sort of a last person standing 4.167 miles on the hour, every hour, till there's one person remaining. In a way, I've almost treated each day as like a loop. So I've got 366 loops to complete, each loop being 26.2. But it depends where I'm at. Like if I'm carrying a slight niggle, it might literally be, right, let's just take care of the next step. Let's just get to the finish of the day and try and make peace with that and just box it away and almost try and just live the other part of my life. Other times, yeah, there's definitely milestones. I think like every 10 is quite nice as well, just to sort of see how far you've come. But it kind of varies depending on what the situation is. Right now, I'm fortunately having a really sort of rich vein of form and things are going really well. So it's really a case of just day by day and just almost enjoying the good days and enjoying the challenging ones, but knowing that every single step gets you that one step closer to the mission.
You mentioned earlier on about, waking up in the middle of the night and telling yourself, I'm not actually doing this, just to be able to get back to sleep. Was there ever a point after you had kind of decided that you were doing it? Was there a point where you thought, maybe this isn't possible? Or was that always going to happen, that start?
Yeah, it was. I mean, I went public with it on social media, I think around Christmas time, possibly like the day before Christmas, just to get it off my chest and be like, right, I've committed to it now, I'm going to give it a go, and that will be it. I just recall on day 2 of it, I woke up with such a sense of dread. Like I think I was having a nightmare. I woke up from the nightmare to the realization that I'm like an hour away from having to wake up and actually run another marathon. And I kind of wanted to be back in my sleeping state of the nightmare. I mean, there's been a period of time where I was concerned about how my body was adapting. I had like a callus on my big toe, and that was affecting how my cadence and how I was walking or running. And that was then putting sort of tension on my like peroneal tendon, like sort of tendons in and around my ankle. And there was one run that I finished and I could barely run. It was a Sunday because I was with my girlfriend who joins me for some miles on a Sunday. And yeah, I was kind of making plans like, right, if it's going to take 7 or 8 hours for the X amount of weeks until I adapt, like I never contemplated quitting, but I had to adapt within the challenge, or I had to think that, you know, I would have to adapt if I needed to. So that kind of kept me from losing belief, but knowing that things would, you know, it's moving parts continuously.
I think that word adaptation is obviously going to be such a massive, massive thing when it comes to not only, you know, when you're running, when you're in the challenge, but when you're kind of going about your day-to-day life outside of the challenge as well. How has that adaptation happened in everyday life, James, as well as, you know, within running?
To begin with, I'm not going to lie, I was a bit like a zombie after finishing the run, because at the start you're more stressed, like everything's new. It's not just the running, it's the nutrition, it's the recovery, it's how am I going to be able to get myself in the best possible state for the next day. So that was all things that for the first month really sort of preoccupied me. And then throw in work. The good thing with work is that I'm a personal trainer, so it's actually really inspired all of my clients and the health club that I work at. So it's had a really nice knock-on effect to encouraging other people to think, well, if James is doing this, maybe I can do 5 minutes extra, or maybe on a day that I don't want to train, I will still train. So that's been lovely. But yeah, the first month was particularly difficult. But now we're kind of in the flow of things. And, you know, I know that from 5 a.m. till 11 a.m., it's kind of wake up, running, bath, stretch, eat. And then I almost transition like 1 o'clock through to 6 or 7 o'clock, work, James. But because, like I say, because of the personal training side of things, it's kind of nice because it kind of energizes you seeing other people achieving their goals, and you can forget about yourself and just, box it away and then come back to it for the next day.
Does the running almost feel like the most controllable part, though? Because, like, when you're out there, you're just like, I've just got to get 26.2 done. Like, that almost must feel like the part that I'm not going to say is the easiest, because, of course, it's not the easiest when it comes to actually running the miles, but the part that's the most controllable. Yeah,
for sure. 100%. And I always go back to the first few weeks, because I called the first month the bedding in process, because I've never ran 184 miles in a week before. So going from, I think my peak week, I mean, I've done ultra endurance races which have gone over 100 miles and things, so I know I can put an effort in on one given day, but then to show up day after day, week after week, accumulating that high mileage, you don't know how the body is going to adapt. Now, as you say, it's almost the most secure part of the challenge, because I know I can do it. I know that my body's probably adapted quite well now. I'm not putting on weight, I'm stabilizing weight. So from that perspective, it definitely is. And then weather and things like that, you just accept. You have a rain jacket and you just pop it on and it's free.
As we're talking, it's the 12th of March, so you're two and a half pretty much months deep into the challenge. What lessons have you learned about yourself to this point?
That action really is all that you need to concern yourself with. That, you know, some days I might not really want to do it. Some days I might want to sort of stay cuddled in bed or lay on the sofa, have a cup of coffee, but action just kind of gets you where you need to be. And just that you're capable of so much more than you actually realize, and that you can overcome anything that you're sort of doubting yourself over. And again, the best means to overcome any doubt or fear is to take that step. Because I've had times where I've finished a challenge, finished one of the runs, and then I'm in bed and I'm waking up in the morning or during the night and I'm sort of feeling a slight niggle in, say, an ankle or something, and my mind starts going in overdrive. But the moment I just take that first step, all of that's eliminated and it's all okay. So it's kind of not staying too much in your head and almost just facing up to whatever you're concerned about and just working towards that. That's kind of been a pretty big realization. And I quite enjoy, for the most part, running in rain. It's not actually too bad. Like I used to, I don't know about you, but when I go out for a run, if it's dry and I get caught in rain, I can accept that. But when I pull up the blinds and I see that it's raining before the start of a run.
Yeah.
Well, no, but the beauty of this is it's just non-negotiable. I don't.
Exactly.
So yeah, when you take away excuses or anything like that, it's a great means to build a habit. Is kind of just, this is what I will do. I'm going to hold myself accountable, and obviously I've got loads of people who have donated and are part of this journey with me. So it's a really powerful thing, accountability as well, for yourself and for others.
I want to touch on that because, yeah, you've got this air of positivity about you, mate. Like when I've been following your social pages, the Smiling Man 366 page and stuff like that, and then seeing the donations come in as well on your stories on day-to-day basis, and then on your posts as well, there is definitely this air of positivity, and people, like you say, will hold on to that and people will apply that to their own lives. Where does that come from your perspective? Where did that kind of begin to get solidified, that positivity?
Yeah, so I had a particularly difficult time about 10 years ago. I was living in Vietnam at the time, and I had quite a sort of difficult, depressive period in my life. From that, being in Vietnam, I didn't really know of services like the Samaritans or other mental health services out there. So I Googled how to be happy. And what came from that were, I'm actually wearing the T-shirt, I've got an initiative called Smilinggg. It's centered around walking, jogging or running 1 mile a day. And whilst doing that, there's 3 G's, which represent gratitude, generosity and growth. So I think it's been a real conscious, intentional effort of mine since 2015 to try and see what is good, always looking at the good rather than the difficulty, because even today you can focus on the rain or the wet feet or the mud underfoot. It depends on how we sort of view things. So I'd say, yeah, it's been an intentional practice since about 2015. But I think whether it's how I was brought up, I always feel like I try to see the best in situations. And that doesn't mean I don't get down. It doesn't mean that some days I don't want to run or things like that. But I just feel like it doesn't make the situation any better if you almost compound it with more challenging sort of thoughts and feelings.
We'll put the donation link in the description, by the way. So if you're listening to this or watching this and you can donate, do go and do that. And I'll put James's Instagram in there as well, because I would definitely go and follow it. It's certainly a couple of times made me get out the door when I've not wanted to. So yeah, definitely go and do that. It's very interesting that you say that, being in Vietnam and having that period of your life, because often when I speak to people that have had a time where they've had a period like that, they can then kind of turn their attention to doing something like you're doing, a challenge that takes a lot of mental fortitude. And that is a parallel that you can often see, that, your brain's so powerful in one direction, it can be that direction of, just for argument's sake, say bad. It can also be incredibly powerful in the direction of good. Do you think you'd be doing this without that period back in 2010?
No, that was a catalyst to get me running. I never ran before then. I rather foolishly signed up for a marathon, having not really done any running. It's kind of, when you're in a difficult situation, sometimes you really hold on to hope that things can be better. So I signed up for this marathon 6 or 7 months later, and gradually worked towards it. And every year since, I've done a charity fundraiser, which has been an endurance effort, whether it's a marathon, ultra marathon, triathlon, or whatever. So for me, it's given such deep meaning, like being able to not only run, but then connect it with a cause close to my heart has been something that I've really attached to. And I think with both running and that, it has really helped give my life direction, purpose and meaning. And for me, combining those two has really been everything for me. Running is, I don't like to use the word running to save my life, but in many ways it's certainly given me so much, and being able to help others in the process by doing something that for the most part I love is really enriching.
And what's it like when people do reach out and say to you, I've taken this step because I've seen you, or I'm, going to start running, or start going to, for example, therapy, or speak to somebody about hard times? Like, how does that make you feel?
It's honestly the best feeling. Like that's been the beauty. That's almost been the byproduct of this challenge, is the outreach and the people sending me messages about that they've got back into running after many years away. And I guess my approach to running as well is strip back. Like, don't worry too much if you're first getting into running. Don't worry about times. Don't worry about if you're going to walk, run. Like, just go out. You might walk, you might run. It really doesn't matter. Take 10 steps running, take 30 steps walking. It's just getting out and doing something, that moving the body, having time away from sort of your phone, and just embracing that. And yeah, it really has been the most powerful. That and the donations, it's such an incredible feeling to know that what I'm doing is having an impact. I've been on the trail, obviously, many times over the last 72 days, and it's been lovely having people stop me asking for like selfies and things, because it means that what this challenge is doing is it's having an impact, and it is changing lives and making a positive stamp on things. So for me, that's everything. That's always what I wanted from something like this.
And if somebody's listening to this and they're thinking about, going out for the first time, maybe lacing up a pair of trainers, I think it's important as well, isn't it, to say, and it's kind of like off the back of what you just said there, it doesn't really matter about pace. It doesn't matter about distance or time. You don't even have to record it. You don't need to use an app like Strava. If you want to write something down, write it down. Or if you just want to go and run to the shop down the road and back, do that. It doesn't really matter. It's just about getting started, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Do it on your terms. Do it on your terms. There's so many stresses in this world. The last thing you need to do is add another stress if you're not hitting 10-minute miles, 11-minute miles, 12-minute miles, 8-minute miles. Like, that might come, and that might actually be something that propels you. Like, I'm not saying it's a negative thing for competition. I think it's absolutely brilliant. But to begin with, just to find the joy, find the love, and that's going to look different for every person. But yeah, just go out and just kind of explore your body, explore how it feels to be out of breath, how it feels to, jog up a hill or try and navigate downhill. Just almost see it as play. I think try and return to that play state, because as children, we all love to run around. Even today on my run, one of the best parts of it was seeing a young child, probably, 2 years old, just splashing with her mum, splashing in the puddles in her welly boots and things like that, and just having fun with it. So I didn't do that because I wanted to keep my feet dry, but just have fun with it would be my recommendation to begin with, and see where it takes you.
I think the rest of you was probably wet enough, mate, to be honest. I think try and keep your feet dry rather than
I know.
Rather than that. Coming up to, I guess, quarter of a way through the challenge now, talk to me about the highs and the lows, those really, really difficult moments that you faced to this point, and have there been any days that really stick out to you as amazing days as well?
Yeah, so I spoke of the bedding in process for the first sort of month, but my intention was to always build a community around this challenge. So I live in East Grinstead, and there's many running clubs in and around the local area. And the last Sunday of each month, I'm hosting a community run. So it's like 5K or 10K, just out and back on the route that I do. That has to have been the biggest highlight so far. In terms, I didn't know how it's like a birthday party. It's like you're waiting for a friend to like arrive at your birthday party. It's like, oh, is anyone going to show up? And I walked up to the meeting point, and there were like 55 people there, and it was just a really special, reaffirming moment that this is mattering and it is having an impact. So from that perspective, definitely that would be the highlight. I've had some beautiful sunrises, we've had snow, we've had -5, -6 mornings. Can pretty much run now without needing a head torch, but those early mornings running from darkness into the light, I mean, it's a very sort of special special feeling. So I've had many of those moments. I'll get to the lows because there's been a few. The one that stands out as well that I touched upon earlier was when I was finishing a run and I could barely run. Like I didn't know. My head always goes to, oh, is it a stress fracture? I don't know why. I've got this obsession with stress fractures, I think. But I was really concerned about, what it would look like, and I don't know what. This might have been like 2 or 3 weeks into it, so it was pretty early on. So that was particularly challenging. I've been pretty fortunate for the most part that there haven't been any huge lows other than that. Just because, again, it's because if this wasn't about the fundraiser, if this wasn't about the community, if it was just me on my own, I think the lows would be so much worse. But even when I've been having a difficult time, I might get a notification and there's been a donation or significant donation or something. And it's also holding hope that even if you're in a difficult moment during it, you almost know that it can change in an instant. Even during the same run. I mean, I know you're a marathon runner, and like you can have down moments in a run, but you almost have the wisdom to know that just because you're experiencing a difficulty now doesn't mean that it has to be for the entirety of a run, of a week, of a month. And that's kind of the same with life. So there's so many parallels. So even when I'm having the lows, I try and obtain some kind of wisdom to then apply to my life. So then even in the difficult moments, it's like, well, at least I'm growing in the process. So yeah, there have been hard times, but in the hard times, I think is when you learn the most and when you grow the most. So I even see them almost as good moments as well, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, mate, 100%. And like I'm not going to have claimed to ever have done anything quite like you're doing, but I've done some multi-day stuff in the past and some stuff for charity over certain periods of time. And this might sound a little bit strange for people listening, maybe that haven't done something similar, but it almost feels like you're the vehicle, and even though you're doing it solo, you're still part of this huge community. So when you do have those moments that you are low, because they are going to come, you're running 366 marathons, you're going to have bad days, you're going to have bad moments probably in every run, but you can look at the donations, or you can look at the messages, or you can think back to that thing that one of your clients said to you the day before. It never really feels like you're on your own, I'd imagine.
100%. And the beautiful thing is so many people in the local area know about the challenge. So yeah. I was having one low moment, just, low energy as you do. And a lady was just walking towards me, and she had a huge smile on her face and says, "Oh, you're the marathon guy. I'm following you on Instagram." And instantly, you just get uplifted. And I think that's the whole notion with smiling concept as well, is how impactful a smile can be. And I've done races where you're doing like out and backs, so you're constantly passing other people. And again, an encouraging word, a smile, it has such a bearing and such an impact, especially when you're having a challenging time. And you don't always know if the other person's having a tough time or not, but just it's not going to do any harm in giving an encouraging word and a smile. And the amount of people that are sort of encouraging me, whether they are on the trail, walking, running, has been so powerful. And yeah, just reflecting on everything that is happening with it. You never feel alone with it, even though like last year I did London Marathon. So the difference in the amazing support at the London Marathon compared to the solitude that is often the early hours of this challenge. But again, the mind's a powerful thing, and yeah, you can go to places where you can have the most wonderful of memories or anything like that. So yeah, you're never feeling fully alone.
We actually had a lady called Dr. Josephine Perry on this podcast, and she was actually talking about the science behind smiling. And she was saying, she's a sports psychologist, and she was saying, every time you see a mile marker on a marathon, genuinely smile, because there is scientific proof that it does do something to you that helps kind of power you through. So that message of smiling is like It's not just going to help you mentally, but actually it is going to help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you know, science is a wonderful thing, but we're all our own science experiments. So go out, run, smile, see, like, go in, how does it feel? Like, you don't feel worse for smiling. And yeah, it's powerful, and it lowers, I think it lowers things like rate of perceived exertion, all these key markers that we talk about in running. So I'm not saying like constantly just have you'd be questioned quite a bit. I mean, I'm already called, you know, crazy and nuts for this challenge. I don't need to be with this Cheshire cat like smile on my face the whole time. But yeah, it's nice, and it also shows you're acknowledging, you're just acknowledging this incredible gift that we're given, the fact that we are able to run. You know, it's a real privilege.
I know you're sticking a little stamp on each day once you've completed each day, a little Smiley man stamp on the wall chart. And if you go and follow James on social, you'll see that day by day.
Yeah.
Have you allowed yourself to think of putting that last stamp on that chart? Because it's still a hell of a long way to go, obviously, but is that in your mind?
A tiny, like, I do, you know, I capture my mind going to that place because that's the destination, right? That is where we're steering towards. And there's, I do a little bit, but I also know we've got almost just under 300 more days on this challenge. But I'd be lying if I said that, I don't occasionally sort of think what that will look like, but ultimately it's just going to be a continuation of what I'm doing right now. Each day is a small celebration, but also an appreciation of how much more is required to do between now and the 31st of December.
And what do you hope that you're going to get over these next 9 months? And what do you is there anything you fear?
To be honest, the most important thing for me is obviously the fundraising. I've set a huge fundraising goal, which is very significant. It's £703,000, and that's representative of each year. It's around 703,000 people that die from suicide around the world. I know that for that to be hit, it will have to gain quite significant traction. So my first and foremost thing that I need to just focus on is doing each marathon and getting that done. Without that, this all falls apart. So that's my first and foremost of importance. But yeah, the fundraising is really important to me. It's very close to my heart. So I'll be doing all I can to expand the reach and the awareness of the challenge. In terms of my own sort of what I want to get out of it is just, to be honest, I feel like I've already got a lot of the things that I was hoping to get out of it. The fact that, you know, I've navigated 72 days so far, and I've learned about, you know, being courageous, of being resilient, of the mental fortitude, all these key sort of virtues that I'm looking to be a better person that I can then take into my like day-to-day life. So that's all sort of character traits that I'm looking to sort of continue to develop through this obstacle each day. And really just to expand the reach of the Smiling Mile. Just, you know, it might touch people, it might not. If it does, I know it's helped a lot of people in the past. I just want to continue expanding the reach of the Smiling Mile. So yeah, the fundraising, my own personal development, and Smiling's continued growth in terms of awareness.
I mean, mate, you've raised thousands of pounds already, and as you obviously get closer and closer to that 366 marathon mark, things are going to keep picking up, and I've got no doubt that you'll get close to and hopefully smash that target. So yeah, again, if you can't donate, there's a link in the podcast description, and please do go and do that. And we'll finish with this, mate, but I'd be remiss in not asking you, really, if somebody's listening to this and they're maybe going through a similar time to what you went through that 10 years ago, the thing that was the catalyst that began all this, from somebody that's been through it, what would you say to them?
I say try and give yourself as much grace as you can, and what you're feeling is what you're feeling. Don't think that you shouldn't be feeling what you're feeling, and to know that through purposeful practice of anything that just triggers a little light inside of you. It might be running, it might be walking, it might be art, it might be something that you can attach to that just takes you away from how you're feeling and gives you that sort of sense of freedom. Just embrace that and just go into spending as much time as you can doing something that makes you feel good, and know that things can get better, and they will get better, but you do need to do what you can in the moment to try and help yourself get out of the situation. But yeah, just try and remember that the difficult times, you'll look back further down the line and realize that they were kind of the making of you. It's difficult when you're in the moment. It's a lot easier for me to talk about the hard times now that I'm not in them as such. It's very hard when you're in the face of it and you're really facing the storm, so I appreciate that. But yeah, just try and keep faith that things will get better, and just try and do something that you used to love, or that that you can just connect with and take you away from the difficulty, even if it's just for 5 or 10 minutes at a time.